Hey, I'm Courtney Waterman, your tutor. Lover of anime, manga, and math. And you just tuned into another session of Tutor Me Sempai. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're jumping into a 9th grade topic, multiplying different radicals. Now I call them different radicals because today we're going to be focusing on radicals that have different indexes. So if you're new to my channel, I'm putting time codes in for this video in the description box below, so use that to skip ahead to whatever part of the video you think is most interesting. As always, if you have any question about what we see today or even your own homework, feel free to put it in the comment box below or visit me on my Facebook page at Tutor Me Sempai and tell me all about it there. Today's video should be a rather short one, so hit that like, smash the subscribe button, and let's get started. Before we jump into our topic for today, let's make sure we have our basics covered. Now, we should already know by now what a radical is. We should know how to simplify constant radicals. We should know how to simplify radicals with variables. We should also know how to multiply radicals that have the same index. If you have any questions about any of those topics, I have a video on all of them that you can find right up here. Check those out and come back to this if you have any questions. However, if you're good with all those topics, let's continue. By this time, you should already know how to multiply radicals like this. We have a wonderful property that we can make use of by throwing everything under the same radical because they have the same index. Because they have the same index, everything goes in the same radical, and then you can just simply multiply your numbers. And we know this to be 2 once we simplify it further. However, what do we do when we have something like this? We need to multiply these two radicals. However, we don't have access to that wonderful property because they don't have the same index. So what do we do now? Is this even possible? Now the answer to that question is going to be a wonderful resounding yes. This is definitely possible. And you might have even gotten a hint by the title of this video. Although we can multiply these radicals, it is not going to be possible within radical form. Radical form is just not going to work. So we're going to have to dig deep, go back to what we talked about when we talked about radicals, and identify another form that we could potentially use here. So there are going to be two things that we're going to need in order to multiply these two radicals. And the first thing is we're going to need to know its exponent form. Not only do we need to know the exponent form, we're going to have to utilize the exponent form in order to multiply these two radicals. So technically we're not going to be multiplying radicals, however, that's just semantics. We're going to be multiplying these radicals by utilizing their exponent form. But that's only the first thing. The second thing we need is going to be, we need to have the same base. Because we're dealing with exponent form, bases are going to be very important. And I don't mean radicands. So these are going to be radicands, but the base can be something different. Not always, but it can be something different. So we're going to need to make sure that we have the same base. Now there might be times where you might have different bases, but that's only because you haven't simplified first. I'll show you an example of that a little later on in this video. But these are the two things that you're going to need to know and you're going to be able to use in order to multiply radicals in this form. With two different indexes, we have to make sure we know how to turn them into exponent form, and we want to make sure they have the same base. If we don't have the same base, this is not going to work, and if we don't know how to do the exponent form, you're just going to be stuck. So let's work this out. First things first, we want to make sure we have the same base. Now, these have the same radicand, so by definition, they will have the same base. However, I'm going to use this as an easy example to determine whether they have the same base, although there will be times where there will be different radicands and still the same base. So let's look at this and determine what is the base. If we have a radicand, so we're going to take this radicand, what will be the base? So we're going to take it its entirety. This is the entire radicand. There is an exponent here, it's an understood 1. We should know by now, if you don't write the exponent, it's always going to be an understood 1. Now we have something of an exponent that we took out of our radicand. So when you have an exponent like this, what is the base for that exponent? That's going to be this 2 here, right? Whenever you have some constant or some number and you raise it to some other number, this right here is called your base. So you see, these do have the same base because the base for both of these are going to be 2. They're going to be understood 1 in the exponent, and the base is going to be understood 2. So we can check that off. It has the same base. So we're good to go so far. Now we need to know how to turn this radical into exponent form. If you recall in our first video when we talked about what a radical is, we discussed how to go from radical form to exponent form. And that was simply taking our radicand, putting it in parentheses, and then raising it to 1 over whatever the index was. So in this case, it's going to be a 2. In this case, it's going to be a 3. So this is going to be our exponent form for both of these. Now you see why it's important to have the same base, because whenever you're multiplying two things in exponent form, you can only do that if they have the same base. So you already checked that out to be true, so we can rewrite this in our exponent form and then continue to multiply. So now we have the square root of 2 rewritten like this, and we have the cube root of 2 rewritten like this. They have the same base, so whenever you multiply something with the same base, you add across the exponent. So we're going to just add across the exponent. So what is 1/2 plus 1/3? So we're going to multiply top and bottom by 3 here, top and bottom by 2 here. So you're going to get 3 over 6 plus 2 over 6, which gives you a 5 over 6. So we keep the same base when we're multiplying these of 2, and you can keep it in parentheses if you want. And then we're going to use our new exponent of 5 over 6. Now you can technically leave it like this, but let's transform this back into radical form. Because we started in radical form, let's go back to radical form. Let's not keep it in exponent form. So in order to do that, we're going to need our radical sign here. We're going to need our base, right? And remember, our index went to the bottom, right? But where did this 1 come from? Well, if you look here, those are 1s in your exponent, right? Your exponent of your radicand. That's what goes up top here. So we can deconstruct this and make our new radical. Our 6 is going to be similar to the 2 and the 3, so it's going to go out here. Our 6 goes here, and our 5 is going to be similar to these 1s, so the 5 is going to go here. So our answer is going to be the 6th root of 2 to the 5th. We effectively multiplied our two radicals and we got a new radical. We can do the same thing when we have variables instead of constants in our radicals. So let's transform each of these into the exponent form. So this is going to be x to the 5th. Remember, we take the entire radicand and we're going to raise it to the 1/4. And this one is going to be x to the 3rd raised to the 1/6. Now before, we wanted to make sure we had the same base. This has the same base, although the radicand is different. As you see here, our base is going to be x. Now you might say, hey, but this has x to the 5th and that's x cubed. How do they have the same base? Well, when you write it like this, you can actually combine your exponents, right? Whenever you raise an exponent to another exponent, you're multiplying those exponents. So this is actually going to be x to the 5/4. And this is actually going to be x to the 3/6. So you see now, we definitely have the same base. So we can continue our multiplication. Since we have the same base, we can add across the tops. So we're going to rewrite our exponents up here. 5/4 plus 3/6. We can actually simplify this 3/6 to be a 5/4 plus 1/2. So now we have 5/4 plus 1/2, and we just need to multiply this top and bottom by 2 over 2. That's going to give us 5/4 plus 2 over 4, which is going to give us 7 over 4. That is going to be our new exponent, and we're going to keep this x as our base. X to the 7/4. But once again, we want to go back to our radical form. We don't want to stay in exponent form since we started in radical form. So we're going to take our radical sign, our base, and let's divvy up our exponent here. Remember, the bottom goes all the way out here. So this is going to be a 4, and our top goes in here. So now you see that you can do it not just constants, but you can also do this process when you have variables in your radicals. Now I promise you that I will show you when you would probably need to simplify first before you start this process. If you look at these have nothing that we can work with because they don't have the same base at first glance and they don't have the same index. So we don't necessarily know what to do with this. Well, actually, if you were to simplify this first or rewrite it in a different form, you would see that they actually do have something that we can use. What is another way of writing 4? Well, we can write 4 as 2 squared. If we can somehow get them to have the same base, not necessarily the same radicand, but the same base, we can move forward with multiplying our two radicals. So let's do that. Let's rewrite this with our new form for 4. So this is going to be square root of 2 times the cube root of 2 squared. And remember, anytime you don't have something there, it's an understood one, so you can see we now have the same base. Now let's write this in exponent form. This is going to be 2 to the 1/2. This is going to be times 2 squared to the 1/3. Now you've already talked about how we can put these two exponents together, so this is really just 2 to the 1/2 times 2 to the 2/3. We add across our exponents 1/2 plus 2/3, and we're going to get a 3 top and bottom here. That's a 3, and a 2 top and bottom here. And that's going to give us a 3 over 6 plus 4 over 6 gives us a 7 over 6. So our new exponent is going to be 7 over 6. This is going to be 2 and 7 over 6. We can rewrite this in radical form as a 2 in here, our 6 out here, and a 7 up here. This is our final answer. We started with this in radical form, however this 4 didn't have the same base, or at least it didn't look like it did, but we rewrote it to be 2 squared, giving us the same base so we can continue with our math, and ultimately we get the 6th root of 2 to the 7th power. So I hope you're able to follow into the examples, and I hope you're able to see that just because you might have the same index doesn't mean that you can't multiply your radicals. If you have any questions about what you saw today, or even your own homework, remember you can put it in the comment box below, or visit me on my Facebook page at Tutor Me Sempai and tell me all about it there. If you haven't done so already, remember to leave that like. It really helps the channel by letting YouTube know that you found this video helpful, and it can also be helpful for somebody else. So hit that like, smash the subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this video with a friend. Well, that's all the time I have for today. I really hope it's helped with your homework, and I'm looking forward to see you again next week. I'm Courtney, and this is another session of Tutor Me Sempai.